North Yorkshire, the largest county in England and Wales. Its 6,000 miles of roads are some of the most dangerous in the UK.
He's hit the central reservation, at which point he's flipped on the brow, and he's ended up here.
3 of winter's toughest months, our cameras had full access to every aspect of this force, 24/7.
Good afternoon, North Yorkshire Police.
This is an Access All Areas guide to policing North Yorkshire's roads. As well as having some of the highest accident rates in Britain, recently there's been a rise in drug driving across this county.
What have you taken, mate? What have you had?
Oh, you're right.
Drugs and drug driving have become a major challenge for North Yorkshire's traffic cops. They have to keep drugs off the streets, catch those who pose a risk behind the wheel.
I've got no sympathy for anybody that takes drugs and then drives a motor vehicle on the road.
And deal with the aftermath of the tragedy left behind by drivers too drugged to drive.
I'll investigate more death on the road in a single year than detectives may do in their entire careers.
Drink driving has become socially unacceptable. Drugs, however, is a different kettle of fish.
Britain's 250,000-mile road network transports more than 100 billion tonnes of goods each year. But it's also exploited by the growing drug trade. Last year, police made nearly 200,000 drug seizures in England and Wales. In North Yorkshire, seizures were at a 10-year high. Targeting the supply of drugs into the county is a complex operation, coordinated from the Force Control Room in York.
Police emergency. Good afternoon, Force Control Room. How can I help?
This area is North Yorkshire, and we've got the A1 that travels all the way through it. We've also got the A19 and the A64, which are quite major roads. We get a lot of drugs crime in the York area. We also seem to be getting quite a few drugs nominals picking up in the Skipton area.
It's Wednesday, 2 p.m. and intelligence has come in about a suspect returning to North Yorkshire from Leeds. The information is immediately passed to Mick Roth and Paul Stamp of North Yorkshire's road crime team.
0267, 0267, we're just getting on to DM now.
Yeah, we just got some information that a vehicle, a blue Astra, has just travelled into West Yorkshire's area. Generally, people go from this area, Harrogate, to buy drugs in West Yorkshire and then come back. Some of the drugs that are mentioned are quite large quantities, so we're going to try and sneaky beaky, playing car and try and catch him.
For every user, there's umpteen crimes that user commits to fund an ongoing drug habit.
The police expect the target Astra to return to Harrogate on the A61.
Just down a side street, trying to blend in as best we can. Idea is for him to come past and not know he's being followed by us, and it just gives us a bit more time just to set the trap, if you like.
The Astra has been tracked entering North Yorkshire by roadside automatic number plate recognition cameras.
ANPR cameras, they're designed to pick up on VRMs of vehicles, so your number plate. No matter what time of the day you come through, it'll read your plate patch and it'll feed that directly into our system straight away. There's usually no delay on it, so I know I can say to officers, this vehicle has just been through this camera.
Although police have over 8,000 ANPR cameras across the country, they don't cover every road. Now it's down to Mick and Paul to spot the Astra among the passing traffic. Nearly 1 hour later, and the Astra still hasn't shown. The operation might have to be called off.
Just all units on this channel, then we'll stand this one down at R4 if this vehicle's not returned.
Just as they're about to call it a day, the trap is sprung.
9-1, contact on the subject vehicle, descends the hill, A61 towards Harrington, acknowledged. Yeah, that's it.
Mick and Paul direct nearby units in to support.
from 9-1, committed as we negotiate that junction on the A61 still towards Harrogate, on approach to Airwood Bridge.
What we're trying to do is remain out of sight all the time. We don't want him for a second to think that police are coming up on him, and we're just trying to set that trap now, really.
Just cross the bridge.
9-1, yes, speed is now 45. Still one vehicle cover on approach to a near side junction.
The Astra takes a right turn, but oncoming traffic means the police can't follow.
Right at this junction towards Kirby Overblow, and we are blocked by traffic. Oscar Romeo units, are you in that area?
Oh, never. It's got him.
I'll do.
The Astra has turned directly into another support unit.
9-1, I can see you've stopped him. We'll just come in and back you up. Just put your phone down, mate. Put your phone down. Hello, mate. Right. Sit there. At this moment in time, lads, you're detained for a search under Section 23 of Misuse of Drugs Act. What is something? Bring that one up, pal.
Got his out of you.
A quick search turns up a large quantity of a Class C drug, diazepam, in the boot, and Class B cannabis in the car. The passenger is the suspect Mick and Paul have been looking for.
It's just going to be more.
Stanley, I'll give you a pat down, mate. Is there else on you shouldn't have? Keep your hands out your pockets.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying.
Just keep your hands out your pockets. Right, listen. You're also under arrest on suspicion of possession of a Class B drug as well, mate. All right. This time. Cheers, mate.
We've been wanting to get hold of this guy for some time.
What else on you? Any phones are out? Any out sharp?
And you know through experience that if you do catch them red-handed, they're going to really struggle to be able to get out of it at court.
Can you jump?
The two suspects are taken to custody.
Sit back there.
But this investigation doesn't end here. At Harrogate Police Station, Tim Wilson of the Road Crime Team searches the Astra for further evidence. And ominously, Tim finds a potential weapon.
Obviously, if they are found with this, then they can be arrested for offensive weapon, but to negate this, what they do is they carry a baseball around and a baseball mitt, so if they stop, they just say, well, I'm into my baseball, and that's why I have it in the boot, ready to go.
The large bag of diazepam is most likely what the suspects were picking up in Leeds. It's a rare find. Fewer than 150 diazepam seizures are made each year in England and Wales.
They've got about 2,500 tablets there in total of diazepam. It's a Class C drug, sort of relaxes people, calms them down, you know, takes away a bit of pain. The only way you can really get it is by prescribing it to a doctor, and it is a controlled drug, so it could be that they've been stolen from a chemist, you know, a burglary or something like that, and then it's sold on the black market.
The police already have enough to charge the men, but they need to find their hideout.
Big light, little light.
One of the suspects is insisting he is of no fixed abode. But the police have intelligence suggesting he's living on a caravan site near Harrogate.
You're on foot then.
Tim and fellow Road Crime Team officer James Duffy run the number plates of the cars on site through the police national computer.
You can run vehicles through it, you can run people through it. Every vehicle is on there, and it'll tell you who the insured person is, who the registered keeper is, and where they're from.
One of the cars is registered to the passenger in the car. They found the caravan they're looking for.
This caravan comes back to him, so we're just getting an 18 or 40 off the inspector, and we're going to go in and search. So looks like we found where he's living. Let's just hope that there's something that he's got to hide from us inside and make it a really good result.
Clearance to enter the caravan comes through, and James does the honours.
He's a lot skinnier than me and slinkier than me. I mean, I'm not the fattest lad in the world, like, but he's definitely skinnier than me to fit through that gap. How am I going to do it? Side on, mate. Side on. Good lad. Entry's gamed.
The caravan is littered with incriminating evidence.
Hey up.
There's about £200 worth of cannabis there, probably, if you separated it out and put into individual deals.
It's really strong stuff as well. I mean, it's really, really strong.
So there's just some individual separate Ziploc bags, and just pick that Ziploc lighter out and it's a set of digital measuring scales. People use all sorts of ways of hiding stuff to make it look like no good.
Everywhere you look there's a bit more. Although the officers are sure the evidence secured this evening amounts to the suspect being more than just a drug user, the Crown Prosecution Service will decide if there is a case to charge him with drug dealing.
The drug scene has definitely changed since I've joined. An ever-increasing trend that we're finding now is people using drugs because their availability is maybe a bit more than it used to be. I think it would be misleading if we said that we'd ever get rid of drugs, because there's always going to be a problem, wherever it is. We just try to tackle it the best we can.
"10 miles south, near Selby, traffic cop Julian Pearson is in the middle of dealing with an incident involving Britain's most popular drug, alcohol. Taking this drug is legal, but being behind the wheel of a car under its influence is not.
There's an offence in the UK of being drunk in charge of a car. OK, so if you're sat in the driving seat, keys are in the ignition, which they are, that's an offence, it's a crime.
Just as Julian runs his checks on the driver, a call comes in.
Hello.
The possible fatal on Scarborough, if you can get in touch with them, please. Ambulance confirmed that the driver's not breathing.
The incident is 25 miles away, but this time of night Julian is the nearest senior investigating officer. It's up to Force Control to juggle their available resources.
I know it's cliche, but it is a very thin blue line, especially in a county as large as North Yorkshire. We cover a vast area.
You've only got a certain amount of officers, and you can be getting jobs coming in, and it's that difficulty deciding who you're going to send where and when.
Yeah, 10-4. I'm with a car in car park in Selby near Sainsbury's. Can you get a beat unit to come down? Part of my role is, as a sergeant on traffic, is to attend serious, fatal and potential road traffic collisions. So I had to find somebody to take over in Selby to attend the scene. Hello.
Hi, sir.
I need to go to a fatal in Scarborough, that's why I've got to bugger off.
Okay. Is that with the keys, is it?
Oh, keys are in the ignition, yeah.
As Julian makes the 25-mile journey east to the scene of the accident, he has a lot to take in.
There's a lot of planning and a lot of thinking involved en route. And there's a lot of information coming over the radio which I'm listening to. There's lots of decisions being made which I have to be responsible for. There's only so much you can do until you physically get there, because what you're told over the radio isn't always what you're presented with when you arrive. Hi Dave, you alright?
You alright? Single vehicle.
Yes. Stink of diesel, isn't there? Is he dead?
Julian is now the senior officer on the scene. His first priority is what has happened to the people involved. The medical teams have pronounced the driver dead on arrival. 3 passengers have survived.
Who's going to get a statement off him? Yeah. Who was? I needed to be absolutely 100% sure that he was the driver. We've dealt with the job in York many years ago where they moved the deceased into the driving seat to make it look like that the dead person was the driver, when actually it wasn't the case. And when you actually looked in the car and the way the car was situated, there's no way that he could have been put in that position in the time frame. So I was absolutely satisfied that he was the driver. The priority is to ascertain who the driver is, so we can let his family know what's happened, and then obviously look at gathering the evidence.
The 3 passengers have already been taken to York District Hospital.
They've all gone down to YDH. I need somebody from York to meet them down at YDH, obviously obtain details,
and get some condition updates. What we need from them is the identification of the driver. So obviously he's deceased.
Yeah, that's safe, I'll sort that.
With nothing more to be done for the victims, Julian's priority becomes preserving evidence at the scene.
Jobs like this, as you can see, are a logistical nightmare because you've got a main arterial route through the county. To make the scene safe for everybody working here, you've got to make sure all the road closures are put in place. And until that's done, we can't work safely.
Got anybody available as yet?
Julian works with force control to manage the road closure.
We rely heavily on the control rooms of the mapping systems, so they look and they are normally very good in looking at which roads need to be closed, where we can send diversions, your low bridges, your narrow roads, your weight limits for lorries, coaches, all those types of things.
I've just stuck out the A64 is the main road from York to Scarborough. Closing it will cause long diversions.
It's not a decision we take lightly. I mean, at the same time, we need to be able to manage a scene. We're not going to just let anybody walk through that crime scene until we've got all the evidence that we need from it, and we're able to then free that road. We're mindful about the effect it can have. People just need to understand that if we're closing a road, we're doing it for a reason.
Julian gathers information from the first officers on the scene to build a picture of what has happened here.
Okay.
So the initial account I got off the taxi driver who was driving the two firefighters was that he was tanking up the carriageway, overtaking them on the hill, and he's hit the central reservation, at which point he's flipped on the brow, and he's ended up here.
The marks on the road and crash barrier back up the witness statements.
You can see the disturbance starting here. See the gouge?
Yeah.
I think we measured it six or seven close from here. But you just, it's going to be about right now. If you shine the dragon back up.
Yeah. See that?
That's where it's starting to
see the
lift off.
rolling wheel, can't you? It's speed, isn't it?
Julian has done all he can. The police now need the collision investigation team to arrive for a full forensic examination of the scene. 15 miles southeast on the A59, close partners James Duffy and Tim Wilson from the road crime team are entering York. They've been assigned to an anti-drugs operation in the city.
You know, we are best of friends, and I've been on holiday with Jim. You know, when we've got time off, me and my missus and him and his missus will go for meals. So you do get a bond because you spend more time with people you work with sometimes than you do at home with your family. So, you know, in this job you really do have to trust each other because your mate could be the difference between you getting home that night or not. Just heading to the York area, there's been a lot of complaints in the community in relation to drug users attending the area and purchasing drugs.
For all its upmarket tourist charm, York is not immune to drug-related crime.
Like any city, York's got its drugs problems, and we do come across a lot of drugs in the day-to-day process of what we do. I'd say a good probably more than 50% of our work is drugs-related.
A specialist police surveillance unit is watching a house in a well-to-do area suspected of drug dealing. The surveillance team will report any cars leaving the premises. James and Tim will stop them to search for drugs bought at the house.
We're going to head there, identify any vehicles that may be coming away from the area that may have purchased drugs, and obviously stop and carry out any searches on those vehicles.
As the police approach the area, the first report comes in.
It's the same. We've got a white VW outside the address. There's just been an exchange. I'll try and pass through with the RN.
Received.
They need to move fast to intercept the car or it'll disappear into the city.
It's 7:30 at night in York on a Friday night. It's busy, you know, they're quite narrow streets in the area it's happening, so it won't be easy, but we'll do our best to try and locate this vehicle.
James and Tim head for a crossroads where they anticipate the Volkswagen will pass.
Yeah, I believe. Are you same vehicle one? Yeah, give us details again. Black VW. No trace niche, no trace PSC, on the Lima at 10.
Alright, Andy. X-ray Sierra Whiskey, we've got contact.
It's crucial they don't stop the car too close to the house. in case the driver realises the police are watching it and warns the suspected dealer.
We're just going to try and make a bit of ground on it and get it stopped. We've obviously without spooking it too much.
We don't want to stop someone going away from an address and then they put a call in, because it might tip someone off and it might just be long enough for them to start flushing drugs away or disposing of evidence.
Stampy with Crichton Avenue at the moment, 2 for cover.
Without warning, the car pulls over. James and Tim have no choice to make their move.
Hey up, Paul, you alright? Just grab a seat back in car, mate.
Vehicle stopped, Crichton Avenue.
Is it your vehicle? Do us a favour, mate, just put... Alright, mate. Just put your keys on top, mate. Have you got some ID on you, mate? What's your name?
Tim gives the driver the impression they're stopping him for a routine insurance check.
How are you insured on vehicle? Alright, have you got it with you? Alright, no worries, mate. Have you got any other vehicles that are on that policy?
As soon as we approached the car, we could see that there was quite a lot of cash on the front seat, all in £10 and £20 notes. And it's a real unusual way to carry your cash. So straight away we start thinking, has this car been involved in dropping off drugs?
Jim runs a check on the driver for previous convictions.
Hub, can you run me a PNC person check with this vehicle, please?
He's currently on bail conditions. You've got 2 counts of wounding, inflicting GBH, and a battery.
That's received, mate, thank you.
As soon as you start hearing things, it puts you on edge that little bit more, I think, because you know what they're capable of. It lets you know that you're dealing with a proper mister and perhaps not someone that's just occasionally using a bit of cocaine.
Yeah, no problem, mate.
The officers use their earpieces to communicate without the driver hearing.
Tim, if you receive him, he is well known. He's currently on bail for all sorts of stuff.
If you get told somebody's violent, then you risk assess that and you don't know what he's capable of. So somebody could be nice to you and change like that. Once you get that information, you then build a picture of who that person is, what they're about and what they're into, and then you make an assessment on how you're going to deal with that.
To prove that drugs are being dealt from the house, James and Tim would need to find drugs bought from the premises in the car. But is this driver a buyer or a supplier?
It might be that we conduct a search, but it's looking how he fits into the picture in that area. It could be that he's somebody that supplies drugs, or it could be that he's somebody that purchases, but with that amount of cash, I'd have thought his other side of it.
Normally we'd search a car like that straight away. Drugs intelligence held large quantity of cash, but we then have to tread really carefully, because if we start looking at turning this lad over, it could blow out the rest of the operation.
James makes a call to the surveillance unit watching the house.
He's got probably 500 to 800 quid in cash on him straight away in his hand. We've got more than enough grounds here to turn him over. It's just whether it affects what you're doing.
Yeah, I don't think it's likely that he's been buying from this kid.
That's received, mate. I'll discuss it with Tim.
The decision comes down to me and Tim. We're the ones that are on the ground, we're the ones that have got him stopped, and ultimately we make the decision whether we search him or not.
While Tim keeps up the cover of checking the driver's insurance,
No worries, mate. Just check you through, then we can do it rest in a minute.
James updates him on the situation.
I have spoken to... He thinks it's probably more likely that this lad's delivered some gear. It'd probably be preferable that we wait for another one that comes along that we think's a user that's purchased, and he's going to have something that can lead on to the warrant. I'll really be guided by you.
The pressure is on to make a snap call. The whole operation rests on what James and Tim do now.
There's a tactical decision to be made there, and it goes against the grain of what we do day in, day out, because that car would be searched every time we stopped it. But if we were to arrest him, would we really get a conviction? I'm not so sure.
He said he's got trade-wise insurance, mate. That's how he's covered on it. But if you're happy with insurance, then I am.
Yeah, received, mate. Are you happy to let it run? Okay, mate, we'll go with that.
My mate's happy, mate. Yeah. Have a good day.
They can't be sure they'll find the drugs they need to make the bust. So for the good of the operation, they let this one go.
Yeah, it's a bit of tactics really. Ultimately we're looking for people that have purchased.
If we start turning over cars and searching them tonight, word soon gets round, even in a big place like York, and then that could blow the operation.
A difficult call, but I think the right call really. Let him run.
The stakeout at the drug house continues. James and Tim now have to wait for another suspected buyer to leave the premises. "30 miles east, Julian Pearson is dealing with the aftermath of a fatal crash on the A64. The driver involved has died, and 3 survivors have been rushed to hospital. Senior collision investigator Dave Foster has arrived to take over the forensic examination. Each of the 43 police districts in England and Wales has a collision investigation unit who attend every fatal crash in the UK. Dave has been dealing with the aftermath of these tragic events for 15 years.
Each one of those brings with it a whole sequence of events and family upset and anguish and pain, and ultimately at the end of that people want to know essentially, how did this happen? It's one of those things, it's a job that needs doing. I love the science and the physics and of what goes on, so it was right up my alley. If a job can be right up your alley where you're dealing with death and destruction, so...
Dave marks out the path of the car before and after impact. Gradually a picture begins to emerge.
Everything will be recorded in photographic form.
What we've found so far is the vehicle's left the tarmac road surface and hit the central barrier further down the hill. It's then hit a separate part of the crash barrier, which has then caused it would appear, certainly at this stage, to roll over onto its roof.
It was quite apparent that excess speed or high speed was going to play a part. The distance that was covered by the vehicle, once it had already lost control to where it had come to a stop, was significant. It's around about 250 metres or so.
And as it's been on its roof, travelling up the hill, it's rotated as well, so in doing so, all these scratches and gouges on the road surface, so it can then track its path all the way up to where it's come to rest, which is just in front of the sign.
Well, that indicates that the vehicle was travelling at high speed, and an order of magnitude that's approaching 100 miles an hour.
Dave has done all he can at the scene. His investigation will continue when the car has been brought back to base. But as the car is lifted onto the recovery truck, something falls onto the road. It could be key to understanding what has happened tonight.
I'm going to say it's a Class A drug of some description. Could be cocaine or speed.
The search for the cause of this tragic incident has now taken on a new dimension: drugs. "12 miles away in York, drugs are already the focus of James and Tim's night. They're still working to bust a suspected drug house near York city centre, being watched by a police surveillance unit. To secure a conviction, they need to stop somebody leaving the house who has purchased drugs. Word comes in that a car is just leaving.
It's an Audi RSQ3 in black.
Let's say thank you.
James and Tim are lying in wait in an unmarked car.
If you sat waiting for a car to come past, you'll often say, my adrenaline's going now. It's a fantastic feeling, and I suppose it's why we do what we do.
They easily get onto the Audi's tail.
Stampy offside indication towards the sea.
That said, subject 1 is now outside the address again on his phone.
What we're going to do is stop the vehicle, speak to the occupants and just establish why they've been in the area, and obviously if grounds exist then we'll conduct a search on them.
The officers can't stop the car too soon in case the surveillance operation on the drugs house is exposed. They call in another patrol car to provide backup.
We're near side lane, Stampy, Lord Mayor's Walk. If you can come towards and support me, just in case he goes.
So I'll be with you shortly.
The Audi is driving erratically.
He's done a bit of weaving as if he was going to go near side lane and then he's gone offside. He's changing all over the place here.
And it runs a red light. It's the opportunity they've been waiting for.
1 Mungate, mate. He's gone through a red, so we've got a good reason to stop him.
At first, the Audi ignores the cop's signal to stop.
Very good. I'll give you a shout, but I think it's going to be a minute. Just be aware.
He's dead towards, mate. He's not stopping a minute.
It's always a tense moment when he failed to stop.
When the cars are pulling up outside.
He's pulling up now, Hugh off green.
And then when they pull over, your thoughts turn to what's he tried to hide. Because nobody takes that long to stop.
What's all that about, pal? Just turn your engine off, pass me your keys. It's off. Get your hands here. Give me your hands. We've been all over the place, mate. We've just gone straight for a red light.
I was just following the traffic, I just went through it, that was all.
You're not, mate. You're all over it, joint.
All over it, John?
Yeah. Detained at this time, mate.
I'm wired.
Detained under Section 23 Misuse of Drugs Act because I believe that you might have something in the vehicle you shouldn't, and you look like you've already had something, alright?
You can see that he's quite sweaty. You can tell by his eyes and the way his pupils are real paranoid, shying away. He's obviously taken some sort of gear.
Just open doors for us, pal.
What have you taken, mate? What have you had?
Backup arrives, letting Tim search the car and update the team watching the drug house.
It's just for info, we've got this vehicle stopped, mate. Lads all over the place. He's obviously had some. It took a while, we thought he was going at first, so it might be that he's necked it, but definitely on something.
There's evidence of previous drug use in the car.
Did he go in? He's got a methadone bottle and thing bit's empty.
Whose is the methadone bottle? Is that yours?
Yeah.
Methadone suggests that he's a user of Class A drugs because the methadone is prescribed to them and used to try and take them away from the drug use.
He looks really under the influence. However, his actions are real fast, suggesting he's perhaps had something that speeds up his reactions and such, which usually going to be a Class A, something like cocaine.
At the force control room, news comes through that the police have raided the drugs house.
The end entry, so we've got 2 under arrest at the scene, 2 in the vehicle that need search, and Yalman.
Superb. Love it when a plan comes together.
But James and Tim still haven't found any drugs on the driver to connect him to the bust at the house. So they take him in for further searching.
Sit in there, just be mindful.
Tim sits in the back to make sure the driver doesn't dispose of any evidence.
Alright, are you working at the minute?
No, I don't want.
Alright, well, it's car from?
It's mine.
It's yours? How have you managed that?
It's my mum died recently.
Oh, an inheritance money? Alright, sorry to hear that.
We've got a genuine interest in the people we're dealing with. They're not just people we lock up. He struck me as a very troubled man. He was unemployed. His mum had obviously died. He's clearly unhappy with his life. He was very downbeaten. It was sad to see.
My wife's going to be worried.
She's going to be worried? You've been arrested before? I'm not trying to catch you out at all. I'm just, being the person we're talking to you, seeing how things are. We all go through difficulties, don't we? Some people, they use recreational drugs, and that's a choice they make. But there's some people that have gone down that route that, has been because of a reason, because of bereavement, or, because of some reason that's caused them to feel so down and so low in life, that they use drugs. Growing up, I lived on a council estate, I've seen people that have sort of gone one way because of my background, gone one way and gone down that hill, but there's a story behind everything.
At the station, the surveillance unit that raided the drug house have recovered a large haul.
As you can see, there's a large quantity of white powder there, a large quantity there, and then obviously a couple of small quantities of what looks like cocaine. A really good result and a really decent quantity of drugs taken off the streets.
Cocaine is the most commonly seized Class A drug in Britain. Over 3 tons are impounded each year. But a strip search of the driver still finds nothing to connect him to the drugs found at the house. A deeper search of the car is the last chance for the police.
You can't beat a drugs dog. When you're looking for tiny little wraps of drugs, it's just impossible. There's that many places they could be hidden in. You can't rip everyone's car apart. Whereas you can stick a dog in, and if it's in there, they'll find it. They're just absolutely incredible.
A sniffer dog's sense of smell is around 40 times more sensitive than a human's. Sure enough, the dog comes up with a bag of cocaine.
Class A drug, obviously. It's been found, it looks like it's been well secreted within the seat lining. So it's a good find by the dog. You can do it best you can, but you can't beat a dog.
It's not a large haul, but potentially very important in proving the drugs found at the house were being sold.
If they say that's for their own use, we've got somebody potentially coming away from that area with what looks like a deal on them for that they're potentially being dealt with. Now, forensically, we might be able to link that then back to the people that we suspect are dealing. So it's definitely a good result, and you know, it's one that we're pleased with.
The cocaine found tonight is just one of 500 drug seizures British police make every 24 hours. Most of these seizures lead to possession or supply charges. But some are connected to cases far more tragic. In Thirsk, the car involved in the fatal accident on the A64 has been recovered for examination. Cocaine found at the scene means that the death could be drug-related. But before the car can be searched for any more drugs, senior collision investigator Dave Foster needs to determine if mechanical faults played any part.
Just about every panel on the car has suffered some sort of damage. This is indicative, the damage itself taken together with the data from the scene is indicative of a high-speed collision. What we're looking at there is almost like a process of elimination. So we're going to examine the condition of the tyres, operability of the brakes, the steering, was there anything wrong with the suspension. Where that's all going towards is to put a report together for the coroner so that he can then determine what the cause of death was. And he has 4 questions to answer: who the deceased was, how, why and when he came about his death.
The examination of the car rules out any technical fault with the vehicle.
Generally most vehicles, or most crashes occur because of something that the driver either has or hasn't done, rather than something that's gone wrong with the vehicle. The vast majority is driver error.
Even for a collision investigator with 15 years' experience, there's no escaping the tragedy inherent in the job.
Mechanical side of the crash is, you know, fairly easy, but when you see all of the clothing and the everyday occurrence of people living their lives, and it's here in this desperate condition following this crash, then yeah, of course you think about the occupants of the vehicle, you know, what they must have been going through as this collision ensued. We were in touch with the family for quite a while after that particular accident. You know, you're losing someone that you love. The circumstances were easily explained, but the loss to the family, it was raw.
To complete his work, Dave needs to determine the speed of the collision and whether the road condition played a part.
This is a laser scanner. Essentially what it does is it fires out a laser 100 122,000 times a second, and the light returns, and it measures that return and creates millions of points, and we have what is called a points cloud.
The laser scanner lets Dave construct a 3D image of the crash scene.
So what we're looking at here is the A64 at Whitwell Hill, and tracking the tyre marks left by the Mercedes as it left the road before it struck the barrier in this area here. And then ahead of that, the car collided with the concrete end ramp, and that ripped the floor out from the vehicle and caused the notable damage and the serious injuries, probably the fatal injuries to the driver. And from this point onwards, the car effectively flipped onto its roof and continued for quite some distance further before coming to a stop out of sight and over the hill crest.
The reconstruction confirms Dave's estimations of the speed of the crash.
He was driving at high speed, very high speed, in the region of 90 to 100 miles per hour.
And there's nothing to suggest there were any external factors to cause the collision.
Road surface was in a good condition. The vehicle itself was fine, good mechanical order. And as we start to eliminate all these other factors, and we're left with the driver as being the cause of the accident, for want of a better term. I've only ever come across a non-driver event on 2 or 3 occasions in 15 years of detailed analysis. And it only takes a momentary lapse for something catastrophic to happen.
With all other reasons for the crash ruled out, the next line of inquiry will be the driver's condition and whether the drugs found at the scene played a part. "60 miles northeast near Scarborough, traffic cops Mark Ganella and Paul Moon are on traffic patrol. Paul needs to return to base to collect a vital piece of police kit.
Can we go to Eastfield, mate, please? I need to pick my cuffs up. I'm going to need cuffs. I've got a spare set in my bag, but they're the flexi cuffs.
You've still got a pair of them?
Yeah. Shows my age, that, doesn't it?
Paul and I have worked together since 2000, since I transferred to this force. I've spent more time with Paul than I have with my own children. So I've got to say that I know him very well. You bounce off each other. Are they edged in a material?
Yeah, fluffy ones, yeah. In toy shops.
No, if you need to talk about it.
In special toy shops.
Uncle Paul, do you need to talk about it?
And we're like chalk and cheese. Totally opposites. When I go to a job, I'm double crew with Mark. I think we've got a really, really good working partnership. You know what? I always say this to people, which makes me chuckle. They all say, "Oh, these are uncomfortable," and I go, "They're not designed for comfort." I said, "If they were designed for comfort, they'd have fluffy bits on them."
But before they can return for the cuffs, a nearby unit calls for assistance with a dangerous driver.
479 excellent. Can I just come in? It's got a unit anywhere near Eastfield, Morrison, behind the vehicle, swerving all over the road. Stop on them.
2 colleagues travelling along the A64. They've got a prisoner on board and there's a car in front of them which is all over the road. They think that the driver is affected by drink or drugs. Because they've got one on board, they don't want to try and stop it.
Paul and Mark soon find the car and take over the pursuit.
738 is going left at this roundabout.
It's clear the driver is not in control.
It is pretty poor, isn't it?
Just watch there, look. Well, look at that. Yeah. That's a bit of lane change, isn't it?
The police hit their lights and pull the car over.
Onto the metal liquid. Hello there. How are you guys?
There are 2 women in the front and a man in the back.
Quite a bit of
Any idea why we're stopping you? Why are you driving the way you're driving? You're all over the road. When you're just driving down this road here, you're all over the place. Why is that? Haven't you? You don't drink? On any medication or anything like that? No medication? No? Okay. Do you have your driving licence with you, please? You don't? I couldn't smell any alcohol at all. But at that point, I did notice that she was missing her 2 front teeth. And that's very common in people that smoke heroin. It takes the enamel off the front teeth, and both the front teeth will fall out. Just jump out a minute. I just want to breathalyse you, just to make sure you haven't been drinking and we can crack on our way. As she got out of the car, she walked to the back of the car. No. She had to put her hand on the rear quarter to steady herself from falling over. So that was a good giveaway that she was affected by something. So I need you to take a nice deep breath and blow nice and gentle into this until I tell you stop, okay? Nice deep breath, nice and gentle. Blow, that's it, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. That's it, thank you. That's 0.
Why were you all over the road then? I mean, it was quite worrying.
I am tired, but it's just we set off really late.
And where are you going now?
Scarborough.
To do what, though?
My friend, see my friend's friend.
Are you on any methadone or anything like that?
No.
You sure?
No, yeah.
But you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
She knew what methadone was. It's given by a doctor, normally to help someone come off of heroin. A lot of people, if you ask them, wouldn't even know what sort of drug that was.
You're not on it at the moment? No. Okay. Have you taken anything else?
No.
She was very lethargic. She wasn't answering the questions fully.
There's all these things that are starting to build and build to make us think she's a drug driver.
Do you use drugs? Be honest with me, because we'll do... Right, but you have used drugs before?
Okay.
All right.
Right, when was the last time you took drugs? You be honest with me.
A while, about a month ago, 2 months ago.
Now, because of the manner of driving, we've followed you and we've seen you weaving across the road, okay? We've both got concerns that you may be affected by something other than alcohol. You're sort of...
Unlike drink driving, which can be breath tested, checking for the influence of drugs is more difficult.
What we're going to do is what's called a fit test, okay? A field impairment test.
So look just straight ahead, don't look at me, just open my hand. I'm just going to put the card up to the side of your face. I'm just going to measure the size of your pupils. So look straight ahead. Thank you. A fit test, called a field impairment test. It's like in the American cops where they, get somebody to walk a straight line, touch the nose with their fingers, that kind of thing. Yeah, and the other side, just keep looking straight ahead. Okay, thank you. And it just shows that if somebody's got balance or coordination or can follow instructions. When I tell you, tilt your head back slightly, close your eyes, and then when you think 30 seconds has passed, bring your head forward, open your eyes, and say stop. Okay, begin.
If someone is using drugs, the time perception test can indicate what that drug is.
If they're on speed, they'll be finished within 20 seconds. Whilst if they're on cannabis or something like that, they'll count up to, 40 seconds. So how long was that?
I would say it was 27 maybe, I don't know.
Okay, no problems.
The fit test can't prove the driver is on drugs, but it will tell Mark and Paul if they need to take her in for a blood test.
When I tell you, you must raise your right foot 6 to 8 inches or 15 to 20 centimetres off the ground, keeping your legs straight and your toes pointing forward whilst counting aloud in the following manner. 1001, 1002 and so on until I tell you stop, okay? Right.
1001, I can't do it.
Why not?
I was born in 1001, 1002.
Yeah.
1003, 1004, 1005, 1006. I'm going downwards, aren't I? Oh dear, you want me to go down, don't you?
No. Unfortunately for you, my dear, you failed it miserably.
Really?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm now arresting you on suspicion of driving a motor vehicle whilst on fifth of drink or drugs, okay?
Right, okay.
All right?
Do you understand what's happening? You do?
You need to come with me now, my dear, okay? Just jump in there, my dear. I'll give you a hand, get in, okay? So you don't fall over. Just
Mark and Paul have no choice but to take her in for a blood test. The man and woman left in the car are the driver's mother and son.
Well, we need to take her to the police station, all right, and we need to get some blood samples from her. So what we're going to do is we'll get your car with you in it up to the police station. Decision is yours what you do there. I think I would most probably stay with Grandma and someone will let you know what's happening with your daughter as soon as we can, all right? The elderly mother in the front, she's confused, she's upset, she's worried about what's happening. And you've got to try and, help her, you've got to try and appease her. For her, she's saying that, you know, her daughter does nothing wrong. It's, you know, she can't understand what's going on. So we've got a job to do, but you've got to try and make it as easy as possible for other people that are involved with it.
The van takes the driver back to the station.
Unfortunately, my dear, you've got me as company.
While Paul and Mark drive the mother and son to nearby Scarborough.
Do you want to follow me? On this way.
Later in police custody, the driver admits to be using methadone.
And how much are you taking that a day?
40.
40 mils, yeah? And is that supervised, or do you get it yourself and you're allowed to take it with you?
It was unsupervised, but...
So when did you last have it?
Yesterday.
A doctor has arrived to carry out a blood test.
Do you want to come with me, please?
Yes.
Just follow me.
But there's another problem.
She did another kind of field impairment test in there for the doctor, and she failed that as well. And therefore he consented to taking blood off her. He tried to take the blood, but unfortunately, because all the veins have collapsed due to a long period of drug abuse, he couldn't get blood. So our only option now is to take urine.
The urine sample shows the driver is under the influence of heroin and cocaine.
She is on illegal drugs, and yet she was quite willing to put her mum's life and her son's life in danger. There's no excuse for it. She's only got herself to blame. I've got no sympathy for anybody that takes drugs and then drives a motor vehicle on the road. They're just putting everybody's lives at risk. You see the consequences of their actions. You know, you've got to deal with the families. You know, tell me that loved ones have been killed, and then you see the grieving that the families go through because they've lost a loved one. And I tell you what, it's just horrendous. I hate it. Everybody thinks, oh, it won't happen to me, it won't happen to me, until it does happen, and then it just tears lives apart.
It's estimated that drug driving is responsible for 200 deaths each year on Britain's roads. 40 miles away in Thirsk, the investigation into whether drugs played a role in the fatal accident on the A64 is approaching its conclusion. A forensic reconstruction has ruled out anything other than driver error for the collision. A bag of cocaine found at the crash scene means North Yorkshire's dedicated search team, led by Mike Pickersgill, have been called in to go over the car for more evidence.
Actually, the investigation team believe there may have been drugs in the vehicle. I've got a team here of licensed search-trained officers, and they will search this vehicle systematically and take as long as it takes to see if there are any actually drugs in the vehicle. Our role is to recover evidence, and it's what could have caused the factor for the driver to have driven the way he did, which has resulted in a nasty, serious accident.
Mike's team are a specialist unit North Yorkshire's police can call on to conduct fine detail searches of potential crime scenes.
We search a lot of vehicles. This is our bread and butter. These search officers like nothing more than getting right into the nuts and bolts of the vehicle and going down to the sort of very, very concealed areas, because people will secrete items in places you wouldn't expect, but these guys will find it if it's there.
The damage to the car has jammed the boot shut.
The problem we've got here is due to the severe impact of the vehicle during the crash.